I welcome you all to today's lecture on administrative discretion and natural justice. The main aim of this lecture is to acquaint the students with the concept and the working of the administration, especially concerning discretion. Though the discretionary powers are necessary, but the powers need to be regulated. Therefore, the role played by the principles of natural justice in regulating the discretionary powers is appreciable. In this module, the contours of natural justice has been explained. Administrative discretion and natural justice. Today, the bulk of decisions relating to the personal or property rights of the people come not from the courts but from administrative agencies exercising judicial power. The administrative agencies are given wide discretionary powers for adjudication, which necessitates that initial conferment of discretionary power on them should not result in arbitrariness and capricious or whimsical exercise of power. There are many checks on the administrative bodies to keep them within bounds, one of which is the observation of principles of natural justice. It is now well settled that the principles of natural justice are applicable to almost the whole range of administrative powers. Principles of natural justice is an expression used for describing the criteria of fairness of decision making by administrative authority. It represents the basis irreducible procedural standard with which administrators are required to comply with. Natural justice is a concept of common law and is a common law counterpart of American due process of law. It implies fairness, reasonableness, equity, and equality. They are immutable and can be adopted, modified, or excluded by statute, rules, or constitution, except where such exclusion is not charged with the vice of unreasonableness and consequential wideness. According to Lord Vignay, the principles of natural justice were those fundamental rules, the breach of which will prevent justice from being seen to be done. Contours of natural justice. Natural justice is an expression of English common law and involves a procedural requirement of fairness. The doctrine of natural justice was initially applied to the courts in respect of judicial functions, and from the sphere it was extended to statutory authorities or tribunals. The 20th century was a period of revival of natural justice. A turning point came in 1963 with the decision of the House of Lords in Ridge versus Baldwin. The principles of natural justice which English common law recognizes are: number 1, no man shall be a judge in his own cause, or the deciding authority must not be partial and should be without bias. Nemo det esse judex in propria cause. Number 2, hear the other side, or both the sides must be heard, or no man should be condemned unheard, or that there must be fairness on the part of deciding authority, audi alteram partem. Number 3, reasoned decisions or speaking orders. It means to give reasons for the decision, or the order must speak for itself. Rule against bias. One of the essential elements of the judicial process is that an administrative authority acting in a quasi-judicial manner should be impartial, fair, and free from bias. Rule against bias is the first principle of natural justice. Bias generally implies anything which tends or may be regarded as a tending to cause such a person to decide a case otherwise than on evidence. In R versus Great Northern Railway Company, Lord Cranworth laid down, a judge ought to be and is supposed to be indifferent between the parties. He has or is supposed to have no bias, inducing him to lean to one side rather than on the other. In ordinary cases, it is a just ground of exception to a judge that he is not indifferent, and that the fact that he himself is a party or interested as a party affords the strongest proof that he cannot be indifferent. In G. Sarna versus University of Lucknow, the Supreme Court of India pointed out, one of the fundamental principles of natural justice is that in case of quasi-judicial proceedings, the authority empowered to decide the dispute between the opposing parties must be one without bias. by which is meant an operative prejudice, whether conscious or unconscious, towards one side or the other in the dispute. This principle is based on below premises. Number 1, no man shall be judge in his own case. Number 2, justice should not only be done but manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to have been done. Number 3, the basic point which emerges out is that a judge must be impartial and must decide the case objectively on the basis of the evidence on the record. A person cannot take an objective decision in a case in which he has an interest for that case. The rule that no one should be a judge in his case is a wide application and means that a judge or quasi-judicial should not only be party but must not have an interest in the case regarding the content of the dispute that has to be settled. Types of bias. Bias may be pecuniary bias, personal bias, subject matter bias, and departmental bias. Pecuniary bias. Any financial interest, however small may be, would vitiate administrative action. Thus, the least pecuniary interest in the subject matter of the litigation will disqualify any person from acting as a judge, even though it is not proved that the decision has in any way affected. In G.G. Boy versus Assistant Collector of Thane, the Chief Justice Gajendra Gadkar reconstituted the bench on objection being taken on behalf of the interventions in the court on the ground that the Chief Justice, who was a member of the bench, was also a member of the cooperative society for which the disputed land had been acquired. In Mahapatra and Company versus State of Orissa, some of the members of the committee set up for the selecting books for educational institutions were themselves authors whose books were to be considered for selection. It was held by the Supreme Court that the possibility of bias could not be ruled out. Justice Madan observed, "It is not the actual bias in favor of the author member that is material, but the possibility of such a bias." Personal bias. A judge may have a personal bias towards a party owing to relationship and the like, or may be personally hostile to a party as a result of the events, happenings either before or during the trial. Whenever there is any allegation of personal bias, the question that needs to be satisfied is there in the mind of the litigant a reasonable apprehension that he would not get a fair trial? There are several causes leading to personal bias. The principle would come into operation whenever there is real likelihood of bias. Some grounds of personal bias may be mentioned as under: personal friendship, personal hostility, family relationship, professional or employment relationship, employer and employee, having acted as a witness and the party aggrieved in the same inquiry. Strong personal hostility towards a party disqualifies a judge or administrative authority from adjudicating a dispute if it gives rise to a real likelihood of bias. As in Mangla's Tea Estate versus Workman, a manager himself conducted an inquiry against a workman for the allegation that he had beaten up the manager. It was held that the inquiry was vitiated. The cases involving rule against bias extends beyond courts of law. It must be remembered that no one can act in judicial capacity if his previous conduct gives ground for believing that he cannot act with an open mind. The broad principle which is universally accepted is that a person trying a cause, even in the quasi-judicial proceedings, must only act fairly and must be able to act above suspicion of unfairness. One of the most important pronouncements of this point is A.K. Kripak versus Union of India. In this case, the petitioners were candidates for the selection of some posts in the Indian Forest Services. A special selection board was constituted under Regulation 4 of the Indian Forest Service Initial Recruitment Regulation 1966, passed under Rule 3 of the Indian Forest Service Recruitment Rules 1966. One of the members of the board was himself a candidate for the selection. Though he did not take part in deliberations of the board at the time of his own selection, he had taken part throughout while making selections of other candidates, including his rival candidates. The petitioner contended that the selection list prepared by such board under Regulation 5 is vitiated and final recommendations made by the Union Public Service Commission on its basis must also be vitiated, as there was reasonable likelihood of bias. The court upheld the contention of the petitioner and observed, till very recently, it was the opinion of the courts that unless the authority concerned was required by the law under which it functioned to act judicially, there was no room for application of the rules of natural justice. The validity of that limitation is now questioned. If the purpose of the rules of the natural justice is to prevent miscarriage of justice, there is no reason why these rules should be made inapplicable to administrative inquiries. Arriving at just decision is the aim of both quasi-judicial inquiries as well as administrative inquiries. An unjust decision in an administrative inquiry may have more far-reaching effect than a decision in a quasi-judicial inquiry. Third type of bias is subject matter bias, which arises due to general interest of the judge or adjudicator in the subject matter. For this bias to operate, the adjudicating authority must have a direct connection or interest with the subject matter. A mere general interest in the general object to be pursued would not disqualify a judge from deciding the matter. An adjudicator may have association as a member or otherwise in a private body, which may be a party to dispute. Generally, these do not operate as disqualification unless the adjudicator has intimately identified himself with the issue in question. As in an early English case, R versus Dear Justice Ex parte Curling, a magistrate was a subscriber to the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. As he had no control over any prosecution by the society, he was not disqualified from tying a charge of cruelty to a horse brought by the society. Administrators naturally have an interest, however remote, in the matters concerning their departments, and if some bias results from this remote connection, this can be tolerated. This type of bias can be classified into 4 categories. Number 1, bias arising from partiality. Number 2, departmental bias. Number 3, prior utterances and prejudgment of issue. And number 4, acting under dictation. Right of fair hearing, audi alteram partem. Audi alteram partem means hear the other side. The fundamental requirement of a fair procedure is to hear the both sides. This is more far-reaching of the principles of natural justice, as it embraces every question of fair procedure or due process, and its implications can be worked out in great detail. It is also broad enough to include the rule against bias, since a fair hearing must be an unbiased hearing. The rule of audi alteram partem is not confined to the conduct of strictly legal tribunals, but is applicable to every tribunal or body of principals invested with authority to adjudicate upon a matter involving civil consequences to individuals. Ingredients of hearing. Hearing has the following elements. Number 1, hearing should be impartial, that is, the authority adjudicating must be unbiased. Number 2, hearing should be founded on materials or evidence taken and recorded before both the parties. Number 3, the decision must be of authority whose duty it is to decide. In State of Maharashtra versus J.P. Kalpatri, the State of Maharashtra lodged prosecution against the respondents under the Prevention of Corruption Act for the possession of assets disproportionate to the income of the respondents. It was contended by the respondents that before the registration of the case, the opportunity of hearing should be provided to the respondents. On the basis of this comment, the High Court of Bombay set aside the order of the special judge and inferred malafide on the part of the government. The State of Maharashtra filed an appeal by special leave against the judgment of the single judge of High Court. Justice Kirpal opined that Section 5 of the Act speaks of the opportunity of hearing being provided to the accused before the trial court and not before the registration of the case. Moreover, the government before the registration of the case applies its mind, establishing a prima facie case for prosecution. The order of sanction is only an administrative act and not a quasi-judicial act, and moreover there is no lease involved. Henceforth, the denial of opportunity of hearing at a pre-trial stage will not vitiate the order of sanction passed by the government, nor it suffers from any malefied. Reasoned decisions or speaking orders. Both the terms refer to the same point, that the administrative authorities must give reasons for the decisions. The importance of the reasons in the decision making is that it brings fairness in action, and moreover it is helpful in determining whether the authorities have applied their mind to a particular case or not. In MP Industries versus Union of India, the Apex Code laid down that the least a tribunal can do is to expose its mind. The condition to give reasons minimizes arbitrariness. It gives satisfaction to the adversary, and it enables an appellate or superior court to keep the tribunal within bounds. In Mahabir Prasad versus State of Madhya Pradesh, the court opined that the appeal becomes a nugatory or empty formality if the adjudicatory bodies do not give reasons for the decisions. Reasons are the links between the materials on which the conclusions are based and the actual conclusions. They disclose how the mind is applied to the subject matter for the decision, whether it is purely administrative or quasi-judicial conclusions reached. The courts in India have widened the concept of natural justice. While the statute is silent as to the procedure to be followed, the executive must give a right to representation. The principles of natural justice are flexible and cannot be embodied in a straight-jacketed formula. Its applicability vary with varying situations, bodies and circumstances. With these words, I conclude the lecture. Thank you.